Many of Roald Dahl's stories often involve horrid adults who look down on children, and one of his most well-known villains, who perfectly fits this, is Miss Agatha Trunchbull from his book Matilda. Dahl did not have a particularly pleasant experience in school, and he had an especially low opinion of the headmasters, who would often resort to caning students if they misbehaved. Dahl really disliked that British schoolmasters thought physical harm was a necessary way to discipline the young people under their care. It's why his stories were sometimes about children overcoming mean adults who seek to hurt them, especially in Matilda. Throughout the book, we see Miss Trunchbull punish children in detestable ways, including the infamous choking. Dahl definitely put a lot of his own childhood school experiences into the story, although obviously exaggerated. Even Matilda herself addresses how outlandish Trunchbull's actions are, saying this is done on purpose so parents won't believe their children. Another inspiration for Trunchbull was the owner of her sweet shop, which Dahl and his friends would frequently visit. According to Dahl, she was a really repulsive woman, and they would usually pull pranks on her. Although one does wonder whether she was really that terrible or just seemed bad from young Dahl's point of view. Miss Trunchbull is depicted as a former Olympic athlete with a specialty in hammer throwing, which explains her towering size and muscles and how she's able to throw children like a girl has the audacity to wear pigtails. She makes her disgust towards children quite clear, although despite her brutality, Dahl does give her plenty of funny lines. She frequently denies being a child, saying she grew up quickly and that one problem with children is they take too long to become adults. When she learns that part of Miss Honey's method of teaching spelling involves creating poems involving women with letters for names, her first question is why they're all married. Her entire intent is primarily to zap any kind of innocence out of the children. Basically, she wants them to wind up just like her. Yes, Miss Trunchbull actually sees herself as some sort of role model who thinks her actions will help grow them into strong people, instead of, traumatizing them for life. It's also revealed that Trunchbull is actually Miss Honey's legal guardian, who took control of her father's estate after he died in mysterious circumstances. Trunchbull forces Miss Honey to give 99% of her teaching salary to her. This definitely plays a major role in Matilda wanting to stand up to her and get things right. She eventually uses her psychic abilities to get back at this headmaster and scare her into leaving the school forever. It's definitely cathartic reading Matilda get revenge on this terrible person, basically fulfilling what we all want to do as children when we got a really bad teacher. Miss Trunchbull captures that sort of teacher who immediately took a dislike to certain students for the pettiest reasons and does not even give them a chance to show their skills and capabilities. That's one reason why I think Roald Dahl's books have appealed to so many children. He was willing to highlight the unfortunate way children can often be treated by adults who automatically think they're better than them. Trunchbull underestimates Matilda's intelligence and abilities, and that plays a major role in her undoing. When Matilda was adapted into a film in 1996, the role of Miss Trunchbull was played by Pam Ferris. From the moment she walks on screen, Ferris gives the role her all. She so brilliantly portrays the character's disgust of these children when she sarcastically responds to them. This is absolutely not a role that can be played subtly, and Ferris revels in the opportunity to go all out. The makeup team also deserves credit for her transformation, as they managed to take the character from Quentin Blake's illustrations and put her on the screen. The key makeup artist responsible for Trunchbull's look was Vi Neal, who won Oscars for the makeup in Beetlejuice, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Ed Wood. She also worked with Danny DeVito on the films Hoffa and Death to Smoochie, and has certainly proven herself one of the best in the business when it comes to turning actors into their characters. DeVito seemed to really latch on to Trunchbull being an Olympic hammer thrower, and quite a few special effects were utilized to showcase her skill at this. The scene many people grew up with the movie remember is the one where Matilda and Miss Honey sneak into Trunchbull's house. DeVito really ratchets up the tension in that scene as Trunchbull tries to sniff them out. Despite the occasionally dark moments in Matilda, the film is otherwise mostly lighthearted. So I think that's another reason this scene always stands out to people, because it feels like something out of a horror or thriller film. It's also an example of how well directed the movie is, as DeVito was able to handle its various tones and go from a sweet scene of Matilda and Miss Honey having tea to this moment without it feeling like we just stepped into a completely different movie. As the film plays on, we see Trunchbull's paranoia going up as Matilda uses her telekinesis to mess with her. This is even reflected in her appearance, especially near the end when things get too wild even for her. This was actually a very physical performance, with Pam Ferris getting injured a few times during production. In the end, she becomes a memorable screen villain who we're definitely happy to see get her just desserts in the climax. Several years later, the Royal Shakespeare Company decided to produce a stage musical adaptation of Matilda. Matthew Warchus was hired to direct the show, with Dennis Kelly writing the book for the musical. Meanwhile, Tim Mitchum was brought on board to write the songs. Following previews in 2010, Matilda the Musical officially premiered in the West End in 2011 and was a big hit, even making its way to Broadway and other international tours. For Miss Trunchbull, the decision was made to have a man play the character. According to Mitchum, the reason for this casting is because Trunchbull has to tower over the child actors and able to physically lift them up. I feel like you could find actresses capable of doing that, but I'm not involved in the British theatre. Bertie Carvel originated the role in London and on Broadway, and received a lot of acclaim, including an Olivier Award and a Tony Award nomination. I have not seen the stage musical, but seeing some of the clips, it certainly looks like an impressive show. The success of the musical led to a film adaptation being talked about, with the principal creative team of the show involved, and Netflix and TriStar Pictures eventually partnering on the distribution. Ralph Fiennes originally signed on to play Miss Trunchbull, continuing the tradition from the stage show. However, it was eventually decided to cast a woman, with Emma Thompson being hired. I really enjoyed the movie and thought it delivered in being a charming musical. The song numbers were very well directed and choreographed, and the way they incorporated them into Roald Dahl's story makes it easy to understand why the stage production was such a hit. Thompson is clearly having a ball of the time playing Trunchbull, and the makeup artists certainly did their part in making her look hideous and also extremely unrecognizable. Matthew Warchus took advantage of the film medium to heighten the reality of this world, turning into a big elaborate musical where anything can happen. There was a minor, and I do mean minor, controversy before the film was released. The filmmakers were accused of being fat-phobic by casting Emma Thompson in the role and putting her in a fat suit. Except Miss Trunchbull isn't meant to be fat, so I'm not sure where these commentators got that impression. In the book, Dahl specifically describes her as muscular, owing to her time in the Olympics and still using her athletic skills when lifting and tossing children. This is reflected in the costume worn by Thompson in the film. Anyway, Matilda the musical has performed very well in its UK theatrical release, topping the box office for 3 straight weeks. It also appears to be getting plenty of views on Netflix. That really shows the lasting appeal of Roald Dahl's classic story and its ability at connecting with each new generation, whether they were introduced with the book, the Dan DeVito film, the stage musical, or this new adaptation. As for Miss Trunchbull, she has certainly earned her place as one of Dahl's best villains, someone we hate from her first appearance, and each actor who has played her has managed to bring their own take to that child-throwing headmistress, eventually thwarted by the world's smartest 5-year-old. See you next time.